puberty when the video for Pound Cake came out was great. He says, Van Halen, you have my attention. And last point, he says his wife declared, take your whiskey home. Her favorite Van Halen song because it reminds her of me. Luckily for me, she hasn't gotten tired of watching me fall down yet. Stay frosty, Johnny Booth from Fredericksburg, Virginia. Yes, Johnny, you have a good point. And I want to say that this particular issue is addressed in the interview I did with Nothing But a Good Time authors, that Dave sort of entered the hair band scene when he went solo, but Van Halen was always outside of it. Closest that they really came to it was the Monsters of Rock tour. But Van Halen, like AC/DC, were always their own island. So that was kind of interesting. What do you think, Dave?
The hairband discussion, always an interesting one.
Yeah.
Were they a hairband? Were they not a hairband?
Right.
Were they a hairband for a little while?
Right,
Did they inspire hairbands? I mean, that last one, they certainly did. They inspired a lot of hairbands. Did Van Halen ever go into hairband territory? I would say you could probably argue around the time of 1984. If they weren't in hairband territory, they were hovering very close to it. All right? And now I would say that when Dave went solo, Eat 'Em and Smile, I mean, that was full on hair metal territory.
He jumped right in.
Oh, I see what you did there. Very good. And also Skyscraper also was that way.
Right.
Van Halen, they kind of tried to move away with that, starting with 5150, especially, when Dave left the band, obviously. So was Van Halen ever a metal band? I don't know if you can call them a metal band. Were they a metal band for a little while? Yes. I think you can make an argument for that. I think a lot of times they get sandwiched into metal bands because they were the late 70s, early to mid 80s when Roth was in the band. And I think they get sandwiched with it also because they inspired so many metal bands that, if you inspire that many hair metal bands, then you must be a hair metal band too.
Absolutely. We are on to letter number 4. And here he comes, Dave, like a tornado headed my way.
Look, up in the sky. It's a bird.
It's a plane.
It's
Midwest fucking Ron. That's right. It's Midwest fucking Ron. And let me tell you something. His hair is on fire. He is scorching with this first letter, and he's sending 3. So he starts off, and this is to me, by the way, so you can sit back with a bucket of popcorn and enjoy this. Dave C., your outrage over the Lockdown 2020 release from Sammy Hagar and the Circle in January seems completely unwarranted. You admit that you knew what to expect, yet you were outraged when they gave you what you were expecting. While I agree that full versions of the songs would have been nice, that isn't what was advertised. As for the sonic problems you complained about, maybe if you purchased the CD version instead of the audibly compromised digital download, you would have been happier. How do I know you didn't buy the CD? Because if you had bought a physical copy, you would have complained about the huge error in the track listing printed on the rear cover. Midwest fucking Ron. Well, very often I will bend over and get paddled by Ron and take it up the can. However, I am not accepting it this time, sir. I'm going to say, Mr. Midwest, I refuse to accept your lashing. And number 1, what isn't what was advertised? Find me a band, Ron. Any band of any genre that releases an album of snippets of songs.
But Dave, we knew this was a compilation of the lockdown songs he had done already.
Yes,
that was not a big secret.
But Dave, did you really expect the album to just be snippets?
Yes, because that's what the lockdown... I wasn't expecting him to go in there and re-record them.
All right, wait a second. What did I say? I said they should release an album of these covers. I didn't say these snippets. I thought the snippets were for social media because people can't keep their goddamn attention span to a 3, 4, 5 minute song. I understand that you go on social media, you want to keep it short. That I understand. That's not a problem. But if you're going to put out an audio album, I mean, the whole snippet thing makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, but nobody except apparently maybe you is expecting him to go back into the studio and re-record it.
It's amazing how you will just agree with anything Ron says.
No, you're apparently the only one who expected Sam to go back into the studio, re-record everything, and that was going to be the lockdown album.
No one's saying
the lockdown album was advertised as, hey, we did these things during the year, we're throwing them on an album. Bam, done.
I have never in my life heard of an album of snippets of songs. I've never heard of this.
I understand what you're saying conceptually, but Sam never promised anything more than what he had put out already. But now here's the thing I don't understand. In full disclosure, I did buy a CD copy of the album, and I am not sure what Ron is talking about an error on the back of the album. Obviously, I completely missed it because I don't know what he's talking about.
Perhaps it's a song out of order.
Oh, maybe.
That's probably what it is. But listen, I want to also mention to Ron that, yes, Ron, I did buy the CD, Mr. Wise Guy, but I didn't look at the casing closely. I'll give you that. I did not look at the casing closely because I just burned it and then put it into my iTunes and then put it into my iPod. That's for sure. But if there's a mistake on the album cover, whatever, I'll tell you what, this proves my point. If there was a mistake on the back of the cover, it just proves my point that there's a lack of effort put into this release. It was thrown together with very, very little effort. I'm going to tell you that more effort and time and sweat went into this episode of this podcast than that whole fucking release. I'll tell you that much.
Oh, no, I hear you. Oh, and by the way, I think I see the error that Ron is referring to.
What's the error?
Because track 10 is Sympathy for the Human, and it's credited to Van Halen when that is a Sammy Hagar solo song.
That is quite an error.
That is. But Dave, listen, I hear what you're saying. This totally was like a rush release. Let's just throw it together and put it out there. Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with you. That's exactly what it is.
Okay. All right. Whatever. So I tell you, I have to say that I never expected an album of snippets, and I have yet to ever see an album of snippets from any other artist on the face of the earth. That's all I'm going to say. I understand. Now, on to letter number 5, which is also from Midwest Ron, and he says here, by the way, someone on the internet pointed out, he's talking about the Mammoth WVH album cover. The crab is a symbol for the zodiac sign Cancer. The billboard underneath the crab says sucks, and the crab has a car in its claw that is colored red, black, and white. Cancer sucks. I think there's some symbolism there I think he's referring to. Midwest Ron. Well, that's a nice narrative, Ron. However, when Violent Eve used the cover in 2016, the photo was the same with the crab and the red car and the suck sign, and that was 4 years before Ed's death. So who's paying attention now, my friend?
Oh, here we go. Well, I do agree with you that the album artwork came out years before Ed passed away.
That's right.
So I think all of that is coincidence, if nothing else, because I believe the artwork is exactly the same as it was originally done. I don't think there was anything modified on it. So
yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Letter number 6, also from Midwest Ron, because he's doing the triple play this time. And he says, in the February cast, Dave C., known as Louder Dave. He's even adding an ER. I'm not Loud Dave anymore. I'm Louder Dave. He talked about Michael Bublé tickets and how the shows keep getting postponed and the money fans spent on the show remains in limbo. As of March, the final 6 residency shows that David Lee Roth had scheduled for March 2020 at the House of Blues in Las Vegas will have had their 1-year anniversary. These shows didn't happen. These shows have not been rescheduled. People holding these tickets have not been given the option of a refund. It's a complete mystery. Ticketmaster took the money, and I assume they are still holding it, and I'm sure Dave doesn't have it. Probably doesn't get paid until his performance, but I would think that Dave would have some say in how the situation is being handled. What do you think should be done? Similarly, Kiss, with David Lee Roth opening, has done something similar, holding the money, but at least they rescheduled their shows. Midwest fucking Ron. Okay, everyone should be getting refunded, especially since there's no rescheduled date. However, I'm sure you can get a refund without a rescheduled date. That's usually the case with Ticketmaster in terms of their bylaws, that's for sure. Now, Kiss has rescheduled dates. So I think I usually give people a window to get their money back if they can't make the rescheduled date. So I don't know what's going on with that, but that's typically the way they operate. In terms of Dave being in charge, I don't think Dave's in charge. Dave's a for-hire guy in that particular situation, but I don't know. We'll have to see. What do you think, Dave?
I think the fact that they're holding on to the money this long is BS.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
I mean, I know why they're doing it, but really, that's crap. If the concert gets postponed for more than a year, you should all be given the money back.
Absolutely.
I mean, really.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's, yeah.
Yeah, that's what John Bon Jovi did. That's what Sammy did. When Sammy had the tour with Whitesnake last summer, when Bon Jovi had the tour, they said, that's it, cancel all the dates, give the money back, we'll start fresh. When we resume, we'll put them back on sale, we'll do the whole thing, and when we can actually, appear. But there are so many people that are going through this game of rescheduling and rescheduled it. We're on the third layer of rescheduling at this point, and it's getting ridiculous. And wait till fans find out that the Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Poison stadium tour that was supposed to happen last summer, scheduled for this summer, gets moved to next summer. Wait till that happens. People are going to go through the effing roof. On to letter number 7, and that's from Eric Torbick, and he says, no nickname. From Jersey. What's up, guys? Last mailbag, you mentioned Jim Florentine's recording of the Cafe Wa 2012 show. I listened to his podcast, now called Everybody is Awful, and his podcast, after Ed's death, he told the story of how he recorded the show and played some of it on his podcast at the time, and it got back to Van Halen management, who offered to buy it from him. He gave it to them for free, and the band sent him a box of merch and a promise of free tickets to any show for life, an offer he collected on during the 2015 tour with 8th row seats. What's interesting thing is he says how Van Halen management wanted the show for their archives, and we know Van Halen and archives don't normally go together. Rock on, Eric Torbick of Jersey. Now, one thing I want to say is that is a quite interesting tale, Eric, for sure. However, the show is available on YouTube. It's an hour long. I think they wanted it for their archives, not for Van Halen's archives. My guess is they wanted it as a keepsake for Dave, because that show was very special to Dave because of his tie with his Uncle Manny. But Van Halen would never release that show. It's actually a very rough-sounding show. What do you think, Dave?
I was going to say, I'm surprised they offered money for it, but they probably wanted to keep it out of circulation at that point. Man, I'm surprised he gave it to them for free. I would have said, oh, really? How much do you want for it? I mean, that would have piqued my curiosity.
It's interesting, right?
Yeah, I guess it's in the vaults, locked away, like with Indiana Jones's stuff.
Yeah, exactly, right, with the Golden Ark. Letter number 8 also comes from Eric Torbick, no nickname, from Jersey, and he says, what's up, guys? Just finished a Little Ain't Enough tribute. Very nicely done on this underappreciated album. To answer your question on the difference between the song and title, Lil Ain't Enough versus Little Ain't Enough, I remember David Lee Roth's interviews at the time, and paraphrasing in his voice says, well, the song is smaller than the album, so that's why it's different. The song is just a little bit, and the record is the record, man. The mural that was the rumored cover of Cutting Out, allegedly with the album title near her private area, is to subtly emphasize the C word. If you say the title fast enough, you say the word. But I don't think it ever made it to print. Personally, I think Dave was trying for a I'm so raunchy, I get my stuff band attitude to promote his album and tour, which didn't really work out. Remember, on that tour, he had a blow up a woman's spread eagle legs and the devil that pissed Jack Daniels, so he was really trying to be this rock and roll badass with no Steve or Billy or even Ted to tell him no. Love the cast, rock on, Eric Torbick from New Jersey. Well, the Lil and Little Ain't Enough, David Lee Roth trying to be cutesy there, I think. Perhaps the band on the Cutting Out is just such a strange title. Cutting Out is ridiculous. I don't really hear the C word in there because the N is in the wrong place to really get that whole thing together, but I see where you're going with that. But I tell you this much, which is interesting, Dave. I remember seeing that show, and when the Jack Daniels sprayed out of the Devils, believe it or not, I got drenched with that on my jean jacket, and my whole jean jacket reeked of Jack Daniels. And I remember that being an issue because I was going home to my parents' house, and I was reeking of Jack Daniels, yet I wasn't even drinking, so it took a long while to get that scent out of my jean jacket. I remember that. It was real Jack Daniels that they sprayed out, which I would imagine would have been expensive to be squirting that out every night from the...
David, you're telling me that I smell